Hi everyone, I'm super excited to host Yashasvini, co-founder of Smarter. Thanks for being on my show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, take us back to your teenage college days until this date. What would be your top career highlights?
Okay, so I studied architecture. I grew up in Chennai, so I went to this high school where like it was kind of being constructed while I was studying there. So like as I was like going up grades, like the building would also grow. And that's why like the architect that was building the building, who was also kind of like my dad's friend, really, really made an impact on my career in some ways. So I saw this growing up and I said, hey, I wanna impact people's lives like this. And I decided I wanted to become an architect, and went to architecture school. Architecture school was really, really fun, especially the first year when you're doing basic design. And like we got crazy like projects where we'd just be like, we'd have this impossible site where there's like a cliff, and then you'd have to design a building that's like going against gravity and stuff like that. So it was amazing. I really enjoyed all of those activities. But then, as we got to like final year and stuff, like things just started getting more practical. You started learning about regulations, and then there's like spatial constraints, and then there's like the financial constraints, and everything else comes into play. So one by one, I think like this whole journey gave me that whole understanding of how systems work. And that was my biggest takeaway from going to architecture school. I really started enjoying thinking about really complex systems and how each one plays a role in all of this. Also, simultaneously, my parents were building an IoT company. There was a lot of data monitoring conversations that were happening at home. So I also interned there during the summers. So I constantly thought about it from the lens of data and data fragmentation and like large systems that work together. So I mean, I think that was like a big career highlight where even though when I did an internship, or when I worked with some clients, I did some work more on the commercial side. So like I worked with a hospital, I worked with like a factory. I'd always look at although I am doing the drafting work and stuff like that, I'd always look at it from how we're sharing data. Like some things I just think, hey, like why are these attachments on emails? There's a lot of data that we're dealing with here, but how do we like comprehensively look at it together? So that's just something that was running at the back of my head. And I think that slowly like evolved into my friend and I from college. His name is Surya. We would just talk about this data issue a lot, and we've been building in that space where we look at how we can make it more user friendly to be able to view such large volumes of data during a construction project, especially in the pre-design stages.
Got it. And I've heard like sometimes the architecture school can be like very demanding. You had any such incident of like
Oh yeah,
burning?
yeah. I forgot to ask you, did you do architecture or civil engineering?
So I did civil engineering for bachelor's, but I did masters in architecture.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So yeah, you're probably familiar. So we barely slept. Like we'd like there'd be this huge room where we just have materials all over the place, a couple of drafting boards. Someone's drafting, some like the computers are always running and they're open. You can hear the fans. And someone's making a model, someone's sleeping on top of the model making material. So that's just kind of what architecture school was like.
Got it. In your first company, what were the kind of projects you were working with?
I was working with commercial clients. So my brother and I, like, he's a designer. He's a product designer. So we built a design studio together. We called it Deja Vu, and we we pretty much actually just like took up any project that people like came up with. And because we worked with businesses, it would be interior architecture projects or product design projects as well. So like one of the main things like takeaways outside of like just doing these projects itself would be being able to understand so many different industries, and also getting that exposure to work with the decision makers at big organizations is like the biggest takeaways from my first company.
Got it. What are the common challenges running a firm back in India?
Well, one of the common challenges that we faced, especially because we were kind of just doing this while we were still in college, was getting people to take us seriously. Where we're just like, oh yeah, we're doing these things in college, but hey, like you can trust us to do these kind of like real world projects as well. And I think our first few customers were super supportive, and like they gave us the scaffolding for on top of which like we built more projects.
What was the reason for the move back to the States?
Um, oh yeah, so I actually moved to the Bay Area because I was working with one of my mentors, and we were providing marketing and design services to startups in both the west and east coast of the US. And the interesting thing about these companies that I was working with was, although they came from very, very different industries, and I was slowly transitioning from like a design mindset to like B2B marketing at this point. The interesting thing was a lot of these customers were targeting legacy industries, especially in the data fragmentation space. So there was that common thread that I could always like, you know, on. It was very, very interesting to go in as a marketer, but also learn about how data fragmentation is being solved in other industries. And that constantly just like reminded me of the things I would think about when I was working on construction projects and thinking about the data overflow in projects.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. The skills we are taught in architecture school thing are a bit on a broader level for design thinking, problem solving, and I feel it can be used and adopted in UI, UX, and other like product design areas also. What has, since you have done that multidisciplinary path, what has been your take?
In UI UX. So I UI UX is it took me a little bit of practice to get into it. I didn't get deeply into UI UX as much as I did into like marketing and the data side of things. But I think the composition aspect of it and just thinking from a user angle where, when we're building a building, we're thinking, okay, how does someone enter? What do they do? Like, and how do they treat each space? What are the functionalities of it? So like a similar thing applies to websites and apps as well. You're thinking about what does someone want to achieve? Like what should I give you here? What gives you like delight and what is like functional? Like so those are definitely transferable skills. And I think a lot of people who studied architecture are now doing a lot of UI UX as well.
So you're seeing the trend as well. So
Yeah.
yeah. And what was the seed for Smarter? Take us back to those days.
So for Smarter, it was definitely not a linear journey at all. I started way back like when when I was in India itself, like it was like the pandemic and we were thinking about what do people need in the construction space and stuff like that. So I think one of the things that came out like after I moved here, like it was like looking I was talking to other people here who were in the architecture and construction industry, and I realized that there was one common issue in India and the US as well. It was the construction industry lacked like the digital presence on the internet. Like we initially like kind of started off as like trying to build out a LinkedIn for the construction industry to like help people network better in the industry. But there's a reason why that it doesn't exist. After talking to so many different professionals from different parts of the industry, like from urbanists to people who are doing like hardcore civil engineering and stuff like that. We eventually moved to the pre-design stage where coordination and communication is actually the issue. And again, that's where Surya and I also had a lot of experience as well, right? As architects, especially when we were practicing in India, we're not using fancy tools like Bluebeam and Revit. And back then, Construction Cloud didn't even exist. So like it's very cool to like see all of that being built right now where we can see how challenging it was before, see how how the bigger companies are trying to solve all of this. We are taking smaller initiatives for the smaller players in this market to actually be able to communicate better and coordinate better when you have a set with like 500 sheets and different versions and stuff like that.
That's quite interesting. How did you find your initial set of customer interviews and problem discovery and validation?
Uh, so one of our obvious places to look for validation was definitely our friend group. So like all of our friends, moved to different parts of the world, a lot of them in the US. You did masters, now like working at like companies. So, we kind of just like understood their workflows better because there's a more systemic process here. So, especially in the larger companies. So, we understood the workflow better through them. And then obviously like we would like build out some parts of it. And today it's very, very cool that it's super easy to build out prototypes. I mean, you could build something on Figma. That's the advantage of being a designer. But today, like you can prompt it out, and that's like so sick. So, we just like quickly build things out. It would just be the interface. There's this thing called the Wizard of Oz method where, we're just kind of like in the back end moving things around. But we just test that out with our friends, some people that our friends introduced us to and stuff like that. And that's just kind of like how we met more people in the industry and validated some of our ideas.
That's amazing. Anything you learned the hard way in this journey?
So I think like one thing I really realized is, learning never stops. And, even to get here, I don't think we could have done it without learning in the process. Like one aspect of it was actually like, talking to all of these people, but then there there are a lot of technical parts to building a product where you're talking about data fragmentation and, really complex file formats and stuff like that. So we went through an entire self-learning phase just to like understand the technical aspects behind the tools that we kind of like just took for granted back when we were in the construction industry. So yeah, I mean I think that kind of humbles you as well because you realize there are certain reasons why things work the way they are. So I think that's the challenge where when you start, you think, oh, hey, like, I think this can be more efficient. Like, let's make this more efficient. But then like when you actually like learn more about it, you realize that you have to like think of it very iteratively. And kind of like how we did in architecture school again, right? Like they always say, don't just like get really obsessed with your first idea. Like look at all of the possible solutions and then pick the best one. So I think like that was something that took us a while to like get used to in the earlier stages. But I think that played a really big role to where we are right now.
Uh, and you're also picking up one of the challenging industry where
Oh yeah,
data migration, interoperability is such a big challenge among softwares.
yeah.
I was just showing the product demo in the background. Would you like to do a quick walkthrough?
Yeah, of course. This is like, again, this is just one of our previous versions that we were just kind of like testing out with a couple of people. And another cool thing I actually forgot to mention is like it's really cool that people in this industry are also like there's a lot of innovation that's happening in this industry right now. It's always nice when you can just message someone on LinkedIn and everyone's always like happy to, take a look at what you're building, give you feedback and have a conversation and stuff like that. So I think like a lot of those things really help with this. So this is like one of the versions that we put out to just like talk to a lot of people and kind of get the sense of where people are in this adopting something new like this. So this was like kind of reimagining how we deal with large sets of files for projects. And the whole concept behind this was to basically look at how we would index all of the sheets in the document and then visualize it in a way that would be easier to navigate between the documents. So kind of like think of this like Google Maps where you also have like the time as a
Mm,
third dimension. So we have all of the disciplines on like the vertical, sorry, horizontal. And we have like the types of documents at the top here. So it says like plan, section, elevation. And you can also go into different scales. So you can like look at it from like levels and then you can look at spaces and then you could go deeper and look at elements. So this is all just dealing with 2D drawings mainly because when you look at the industry today, everybody coordinates in 2D, even though they work in different softwares that may or may not have 3D. And then the aspect of time is really helpful because that's what helps you keep track of versions and it gives you more context on what what came when and like if there was a coordination error somewhere or not. So like we were just looking at it purely from like a design thinking lens of how can we make the traditional file arrangement more intuitive when you have to collaborate with multiple people.
This is amazing. And in software development, we have like GitHub and for Git for version control.
Yeah.
Like we don't have similar thing for drawings.
Yeah, I see a lot of people implementing it into their product right now, and I think that's very cool. But again, there's a reason why it's not fully implemented in a lot of places because it is a slightly challenging task given the nature of like how these PDFs are built. Yeah, and then over this, like we built a markup tool where you could go in and open the drawing, compare it, put in some kind of annotations and stuff like that.
What's the bigger vision for this?
So our bigger vision, like I said before, was more from the data side. All of this came in from how can we get people to use our platform to basically engage with drawings overall. But our vision was more on the back end where we wanted to see how we can actually take all of the data that people are, let's say, emailing. Like let's say you're an electrical consultant, I'm an architectural consultant. I'm sending the plans to you. You are sharing your electrical drawings with me. I want to be able to capture the entire context of this interaction that we've had right now. Maybe, I said, hey, like you cannot put this switch here because I'm planning to put a shelf here later or something like that. So, in order to capture all of this context, like our vision is more on the back end where we are trying to build a knowledge graph of just building that relationships between the drawings and capturing the conversations that happen to give that context.
So for the like people who would be using the app, the workflow is they upload their AutoCAD drawing or drawings PDF and they mark the discipline label while uploading the drawings on the platform.
So all of that we actually extract it from the drawing itself. And I mean, we have an AI layer as well, which helps fill in context, but also asks for human input if there's an edge case.
What has been the most challenging like feature or problem to solve?
So for us, the most challenging feature has probably been like just managing the PDF itself. I think that's an area where we're like learning more about as well because the PDFs, in order to be useful, they're extremely heavy, but then that makes it extremely laggy. So and then a lot of times we have to kind of take this call on like, are we just rebuilding another tool that actually exists, but we just don't have access to it, like to build over it. So there's really like I think the most it's not technically difficult, but then just kind of like weighing the pros and cons of what is useful to build immediately and what's not is the biggest challenge.
Who are the people who you admire in the startup space, be it AC or outside AC, and you like to follow that playbook for your company?
Very early on, actually, it was. I used to really look up. I still do. I think I look up to Dylan Field. Just the way they built Figma. Maybe that's a mainstream answer now, given that Field. But back when I used to tell people, they'd ask me who he is. Anyway, so like I think one thing I really admire is having that vision and also the fact that someone wanted to do something to the design space at a time when design wasn't really known to be a profitable area. I think that's what was just amazing, where like you're actually really thinking about the people and building for the people. Another thing I really admire about Figma's journey is just how long it took to build such a perfect product, and like today it's a raging success. So I think all that determination and building something that the people want is a lot of stuff that I like look up to Dylan Field for.
What would be your advice to 18-year-old Yashasvini?
Okay, I there's a lot of advice I'd give myself. I would have probably told myself to, be more interested in computer science and, just like software a little bit more. I mean, I think that was something that I did not really understand the importance of, or like, just the kind of like impact you could have through software. Is something I didn't understand when I was 18. But today, like, I think again, there are no regrets here because I think like it's become very, very easy to learn how to use it, and also to like build things. But I think it's just very cool to have to think about the software side of things and to think about like the physical like architecture side of things and put those two mindsets together, like that's just a very interesting space right now, I feel.
Any mentor who you would like to give a shout out to?
So I would definitely give a shout out to my first ever client. So this was in Chennai. Kaveri Hospital was actually one of our very big hospital, and the management was very supportive. And a big shout out to like them because they really supported building my first venture. I would definitely also give a shout out to my college dean. I went to Anna University. Her name is Sita ma'am. So she just always pushed me and my co-founder Surya, in fact, like in college, and she would always encourage us to, build whatever we envisioned. And I think she was really disappointed right after college because both of us weren't directly, in architecture. We weren't taking the traditional path. We weren't like working at an architecture firm and doing all of that. And she's like, I really saw both of you doing something in this industry. Like, you guys should do something. So I definitely, she was a really, really big mentor through college. And I also think my family, because, I come from a family of entrepreneurs and I just kind of like saw them build just growing up. And that just gave me a lot of confidence to take the courage to just like build something new, to reach out to people and just not be afraid to try something different.
Got it. If you were to start, let's say, a new company, what would you plan for the first month till the third month? How would you approach it?
Oof. Okay, so I think the first thing I would do is I would start by finding a customer. I would look for someone who has a head on fire problem, and then I'd sit with them and really understand the problem in depth, and then like start building small versions of the product to solve the problem.
So they either reach out to people in the network, outside the network, and do some customer
Yes,
interviews to
yes,
find
yes.
that head on fire problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's crazy. Like, it's crazy how, I mean, you probably know as well, like, how many people actually respond. Like, if it's really a volume game, you message a lot of people, like, two people will respond, and you never know how they're going to impact you.
I wanna do a rapid fire round. You have
Yeah.
5 to 10 seconds to answer it, and you have to keep it super brief.
Okay.
Your favorite restaurant in Chennai?
Oh my God. Okay. Sangeeta.
Yes. Uh, favorite movie?
I really like The Lion King.
City in your travel bucket list?
I definitely want to go to Spain.
I mean, like city, any particular or
In Spain, I want to go to Barcelona. Yeah, Barcelona.
God, any book which or video which made a big impact in your life?
I just read The Worlds I See by Dr. Fei Lee. It was a great read that changed my life.
Yeah. 3 words your co-founder would describe you as.
Okay. I hope I'm right. I hope it's funny. And then I think he'd say I'm the more extroverted, don't take no as an answer type person. And, figure it out. I'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
Any event or conference you would recommend a startup founder to attend for sure?
Actually, when I moved to the Bay Area, I went to two conferences that changed my life: Config and TechCrunch. Config was really nice. You focused group of people who were focused on design. TechCrunch is great because you meet different kinds of people, and if you go with a focus, I met people that I still have a relationship with, so that's pretty cool.
Your favorite architecture building?
Actually, I really love Mill Owners Building in Ahmedabad.
God. Uh, favorite architect?
It used to be Bjarke Ingels, but I've never seen his buildings. It's more because of his personality.
Who's your role model?
I have a lot of role models right now. I would say Dr. Fei Lee. After I read her book, I really started looking up to her journey.
Do you listen to podcasts? If yes, what are few podcasts you listen often?
I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but I do listen to a few, maybe like the All In podcast. Less now. I mean, a little bit more when they used to talk more about startups, and uh, I listen to a lot of like news type of podcast. Oh, and How I Built That. That was a really good um one I used to listen to a lot of.
Anything which we didn't cover in this interview and you'd like to end on that note?
I'm just really excited for the future of construction and construction tech. I think we're actually at a time where we're probably going to see really big changes. Mainly because I think I'm having conversations with a lot of people who have no construction background about pain points in the construction industry. And I remember like 3 years ago when my friend and I, like Surya and I, we started talking about this. We'd have to like convince people to sit down and hear us talk about these pain points. So I think that's amazing. And then I think there are like really cool startups like Trunk Tools are cool. They're making the industry seem like it's more Gen Z friendly. They're changing the culture in construction, and I just think I'm really excited about where we're going.
That's amazing. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Yashasvini for
Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation.